Hey everybody, my name's Tyler Tatton. I'm one of the mental health support peers at Southern Utah University, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And I want to welcome you to another episode of Brainstorm, where this series of videos is meant to be a mental health resource for students at Southern Utah University. And yeah, we're going to be talking about some prevalent mental health topics throughout the rest of the series, but
yeah,
we're happy to go with today.
And I'm Chelsea Gambles. I'm a counselor at SUU and also super excited to be here. Like Tyler mentioned, this channel is meant to be a resource for mental health, wellness, and skills. It's not intended to take the place of any counseling. And we are just excited to introduce Matt Reiser to you today. Matt, thanks for being here. We're super excited to have you.
Great to be here.
Yeah. This video is going to be awesome. I think it'll be really useful for students, and you guys are in for a treat because you'll get to learn a little bit about a skill that can be used in a lot of ways in a lot of places for managing stress, which what student doesn't need that, right? But Matt is a licensed psychologist. He works at CAPS. I have the pleasure of working with him, and he is also the director of training for SUU at CAPS. So what that means is we have interns who are matched through the system, sort of like the med school system, from all over the country. And he manages more things than you can even imagine in taking on that role. And they're training while they're here, their internship while they're here, making sure that they get all the things done so that they can then go out into the world and be licensed psychologists as well. So he has been at CAPS for 5 years now. He is board certified in biofeedback and has been doing it since about 2008. That's a long time. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Cool. Now, Tyler, you want to give us a little.
And Matt's great. He provided a training for the mental health support peers last year on biofeedback, and I've been fortunate enough to use that with students, and so we really are in for a treat today. But before we get into talking about biofeedback, I want to give our disclaimer again that any opinions expressed in this video are the opinions of the individual, not necessarily the official stance of SUU CAPS or Southern Utah University as a whole. And then, like Chelsea said, just remember that these videos are meant to be supplemental to whatever mental health resources you are already accessing. They're not meant to be your sole source of mental health support. And also we will be including links to any crisis resources, as well as the other CAPS resources in the description for the video. So let's get going. Let's talk about biofeedback. I guess, Matt, what is biofeedback?
Yeah. Biofeedback, its simplest definition just is information from the body. So if you have any type of sensor or program, a lot of times it's just these. I have one on me right now. This simple sensor, I can just attach it to my earlobe, but that information, it can tell me things like what my heart rate is. It can tell me how much sweat gland activity I have. It's non-invasive. So again, it doesn't hurt. We're not like drawing your blood to measure your cortisol levels, right? Like to look at your stress. We can see those things like your heart rate, the changes in your heart rate. We can see your muscle tension. We can see what we call skin temperature, which changes if you're really, really stressed or anxious or nervous. It changes when you're able to relax and calm down. So biofeedback, again, it's a learning process where you can learn about your own body, your mind-body connection, what's going on with you physiologically. Students, definitely carry a lot of stress, and we have stress in our body. It manifests itself differently. If you've ever been anxious and you've had like cold and clammy hands, right? Anxious or nervous, that clamminess is the increased sweat gland activity, right? And it's very sensitive. Within a matter of seconds, you can be embarrassed about something and then you can start sweating profusely in a matter of seconds. And biofeedback can pick up on those changes, even the subtle changes that maybe you're not even aware of or can perceive. Biofeedback sensors can pick up on that, and you can see that kind of graphically on like a computer screen or like on an Apple Watch, let's say. But then again, going back to that hand analogy, I mean, the coldness of your hands is your skin temperature. It's actually dropping, right? So skin temperature is very different than body temperature. Your body temperature is pretty relatively stable, right? Like 98.6 or something like that, around there. But your skin temperature can vary extremely from low 70s to high 90s, 95, 96. So if you're not, that coldness in your hands is because you're tense, you're anxious or stressed, and your skin temperature has dropped. And the opposite happens when you relax, right? You warm up your hands in your peripheral, your hands and your feet warm up when you relax, when you're calm, when you've been able to do some things, strategies that help you de-stress. So biofeedback really is this information about your own body, of what's going on. And that's helpful information to know. It's helpful to know what triggers us. It's helpful to know how our thoughts are impacting, again, our physiology. And then it's also helpful to know, and this is part of the training in biofeedback, is learning how to change that, right? So in our biofeedback lab at CAPS, we're trying to change and help students learn different strategies, relaxation techniques, mindfulness strategies, so that they can quickly perceive the awareness piece. Hey, I'm stressed. I'm getting some stress. I can feel some tension in my neck, right? Or wherever it might be building up. And now I can do something about it, just like I practiced in the biofeedback lab. If students can be successful here in the lab and can see those changes, and if they can, invest some time and effort into that, then that's how we can, the hope is they can go and do that at home, right? When they don't have biofeedback. Even though there are biofeedback devices like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch that give you some of that information, it can tell you your heart rate or some other information. So yeah, that's just maybe a little bit of an introduction about maybe what biofeedback is.
Yeah, thank you. That's super helpful. And maybe just to summarize, because even I don't know if I'm not trained in biofeedback, but it's basically kind of like a two-part thing in the idea that so knowledge is power. So students get knowledge about their biology. One, because even just that input alone is useful for the mind to understand the mind-body connection, so that they can understand what's going on in their body, so that even when they don't have that the materials to kind of track their feedback, they can start to track their physiology or their body responses to stress better. But then two, once they're getting that feedback, they also get to learn techniques and strategies to then change their physiology. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just a little bit of history about the biofeedback lab here at SUU. I mean, I actually worked here about 11 years ago, just for a year. And Susan Garner was here, and she had an interest in biofeedback, but didn't have a lot of training. And I had some training, but, we talked about, biofeedback is, you have your eyes open and you're watching the computer screen and you're seeing what's going on with your physiology as it's changing, and that's very different than relaxation training, which might look more like you're closing your eyes, you're relaxing, you're listening to like a relaxation recording, but you're not getting that feedback with your eyes open, right? And so when we started the lab here at SUU, Susan and I, we did kind of both. So we do train in conjunction with the biofeedback lab. We have students hooked up to the sensors and equipment, but we also do relaxation training. So we teach 8 different relaxation strategies. So students can do kind of both. They're practicing relaxation, but they're also then opening up their eyes. They're seeing these changes, the physiology that's going on for them. And again, the combination of the lab here, I mean, that's what works. That's what's helpful, right? Like in increasing this awareness, practicing different skills, trying it out on your own, coming back and finding out again, troubleshooting where you're getting stuck or what's kind of, some of these barriers that are kind of going on. And so again, ever since then, since 11 years ago, we've been adding different, programs for biofeedback. Health and Wellness has biofeedback program there. That Tyler's done with some students. And so it's a great thing that students can utilize. And again, there's always maybe some questions about, like it's a little foreign, it's a little scary. And we hope to try and, just teach people about it, that it's not invasive, that it can really be helpful. You have to invest some time into it to practice, to learn it, but it really can be super helpful for many things.
Yeah, I just want to say biofeedback really is so cool to do. In one of the first weeks of my time at SUU, CAPS was having an open house at the CAPS building. This was long before COVID, and so we could all do cool stuff like that. And so I just wanted to go check it out. And one of the things that they were showing during this open house was biofeedback. And so I got to see it, and I thought it was super cool, but then I didn't really do anything with it for a while. And then when I became a peer, and Matt taught the peers about biofeedback and how it works, taught us how to use the program that we have in the Health and Wellness Center. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I spent quite a bit of time figuring out that program myself, doing different things with it, and then was able to use it to help different students last year with it as well. And it was really cool. As soon as COVID came, we had to stop doing that, but I still use a lot of the same like trainings that are involved in the biofeedback program with students, just without the sensors. So we do have a video in the Brainstorm series that's just an introduction to biofeedback, and I show the machine that we have in the Health and Wellness Center. So check out that video. But yeah, biofeedback really is so cool. But I guess to keep going, what is it about biofeedback that makes it so useful for college students to use?
Yeah, good question. I mean, as we've been talking about, college is a very stressful time. And so there's a lot of pressure on students to do well academically. They're away from their homes, a lot of them for the first time, right? Balancing things like relationships and school and family stuff. I mean, just you name it. College is a stressful time. And so, for college counseling centers or for university campuses, the main referral source really is students that are stressed, students that have anxiety about whatever, students that have test anxiety. But it can also help improve concentration. It can help with things like depression and a variety of things. And so when a student would be referred to like biofeedback, to do some sessions in biofeedback, sometimes that's actually easier to do than counseling, right? They know they're stressed, they know they're struggling, but again, they're maybe a little reluctant to try counseling, but they might be, hey, I could maybe do something like this biofeedback thing, tell me what it is and learn, and they can learn a little about it. So again, they can do some biofeedback sessions. They can learn about where they carry stress in their body. They can learn about, again, these triggers or these contributing factors that are increasing their stress and anxiety. And then they're practicing with the biofeedback equipment. Like you said, Tyler, these different activities, strategies where they're saying, oh, wow, that program is responsive to what I'm doing. If I have a negative thought, right, like it can show up, my heart rate increases and the rocks that I'm trying to stack fly off the top of the screen, right? And then we're saying, yeah, that's what's going on. So we're going to practice again. We keep practicing, trying to, find that optimal breathing rate, slow your breathing down a little bit, focus on positive thoughts, watch as the rocks kind of stack or whatever activity you're doing, because once you your brain is trying to, and your body is trying to figure out again, what's maybe working for you. And if you can do that successfully, right, you're learning these strategies that are working for you, then again, you're trying to do that before a test, right? To prepare, to lower your stress and anxiety. You still have to study for the test. You can't get away with that. But if you study for the test and you've and you've done this relaxation biofeedback training, then you can go into a test confident and do your best and keep that anxiety, you know, at bay. And again, it can increase your performance. So, but it does take practice. You're not going to learn it in one session, and you do have to kind of find out again what's going on for you. And that's where, you know, Christina Johnson and I were the ones at CAPS that do the biofeedback. But that's what we're helping students to do, is learn what works for them before a test, during a test, after a test, or again, managing these other things, whether it's this stress with school or anxiety about relationships or family or what have you. And we do see a huge difference. You know, students will come in and they're like, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm like an 8 of stress right now. And so then we'll do a 30-minute session with them. And then sometimes they might leave and they're like, you know, I've gone from an 8 to a 2 as far as stress. Now they've still got the rest of their day to kind of go through, go to class and what have you. But again, we were now at a 2 and we want to try and keep them at a 2 or a 3, something lower so that they can engage, pay attention, you know. But what happens, because we're human beings, stress creeps back in our lives. It comes from all these different sources. And then we've got to be aware of what's going on, where the tension's coming from, what thoughts are going through our head, and then doing something about that, right? Like doing some mindfulness activities, doing some relaxation, you know, taking a break or self-care, whatever that might be. So that's kind of all, you know, if college students can figure out what works for them with some of these coping skills and strategies, and biofeedback can be, you know, just another tool in their tool belt of what works for them, then again, they can notice a lot of positive, you know, things from it, right? Like better concentration and managing stress better, and good relaxation strategies that are going to help them be successful at school.
That's really cool. And I'm thinking, as you're talking about just so many different of the modalities that we use to help people in therapy, you know, like DBT, CBT, even just general mindfulness. It starts with a basic awareness or a core mindfulness, right? Like, because you can't do so many of them, because you can't really do anything if you don't know what's going on with what's in your body, or just with your even stress level. And I think as students, when you get so bombarded with all the things, even just being able to have the skills to know what's happening in your body. And then, I mean, that's significant to spend a half hour and have, you know, such a reduction. And I have students talk to me about that as well, often. And Tyler's mentioned seeing that a lot as well, that to have such a significant reduction in stress in a short amount of time, I mean, that's really useful. And this might segue sort of into the online group, but you've mentioned to me some of the things you're doing with like test anxiety and filming like the imagery related to walking to the testing center and things like that. So maybe tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to the online group that students can access. Yeah.
So because of COVID, we haven't been able to do biofeedback for a little while, which is too bad. But you know, pre-COVID, we would do a workshop where we would kind of bring several students in and we would teach them a little bit about biofeedback and do a demonstration, and yeah, just orient them a little bit to what biofeedback is. And then after that, they could schedule those individual sessions one-on-one with us at CAPS. And so we haven't been able to do that, but again, we just had this idea of we could record introductions about biofeedback and these demonstration videos, and students can learn some of these concepts and principles and even apply them now, even if they're not meeting one-on-one with us. So again, Christina and I have been trying to put together several videos. We've got videos on like the fight or flight response and lots of the relaxation strategies and an intro to biofeedback, and demonstrations of biofeedback. So students can get oriented to it. And Tyler, kind of like you said, you don't necessarily have to have the biofeedback equipment and sensors. That is helpful, but you can still learn these principles. And then eventually when we can do sessions one-on-one in CAPS or at Health and Wellness, then you can keep, you know, the progress going of doing those sessions. So right now we have this online biofeedback workshop where any SU student who's interested, if they want to enroll in that, they can contact CAPS at the front desk and say, hey, I'm interested, and kind of just explain the process of how to get into it. But it gives you a ton of resources, videos and handouts, and you know, these places where you can practice the relaxation, practice learning a little bit more about mindfulness or what happens to the body with the fight or flight response and how biofeedback can be helpful. And there are some biofeedback, things out there like the Apple Watches or the Fitbits that can give you a little bit of biofeedback information, right? So you can check your heart rate with a Fitbit. If it's above 90, right, then that's a little high for a resting heart rate. And you can listen to one of the recordings, for 5 or 6 minutes. Then you can check your heart rate again with your Fitbit. And if it's in the 80s or maybe 70s, if it's gone down a little bit, then that's again kind of a good thing. And a lot of times you can maybe perceptively, feel the difference, right? I'm now less stressed. I'm maybe going from a 6 to a 4 or whatever it might be. And then you can engage in your homework, right? So right now the online biofeedback workshop has a lot of resources. And again, any SU student, if they're interested in that, they can enroll in it. And we hope to kind of add some more videos and some other things that might be helpful to students, throughout the summer. We're thinking about doing like a drop-in group type deal where students can drop in and again, ask questions of where they're getting stuck or just some other ideas of what might be helpful for them to kind of continue to make progress with that. So I think it's kind of fun. I mean, we'll still kind of have it even when we go back to person, students can still access those resources because I think they'll be helpful. But yeah, hopefully we can eventually get back to seeing students face to face and doing the one-on-one sessions. But it is a great resource right now that students can utilize.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I never really thought about like the Apple Watch and Fitbits being biofeedback, but they really are. And even with different equipment that is specifically made for biofeedback, different ones will measure different things. Like the one in the Health and Wellness Center does heart rate and skin conductance, where one might do just heart rate or might do even more stuff. So that's cool to see. And I think the thing that I find just so cool with biofeedback is that as they're doing it and with whatever device, they can just see that the skills they're using are working, and it just connects better in their mind that like, hey, this is proof that this is working for me. And so it just makes it, I guess, more acceptable or easier for them to accept that it is working and that they can use it again later. So it's just so cool.
Yeah, I've done some outreaches, right, where I've got my sensors in my computer program and I'm like, hey, you want to see if you're stressed? And they're like, what? And so I hook up a student and then they can see this graph and what's going on. And I'm like, yeah, let's do some things. And they're like, whoa, that is cool. And then they're like, hey, come check this out, right? Like they're talking to their roommates and then we're like, let's hook you up, right? Let's see what's going on for you. And it has been, again, we haven't been able to do that stuff kind of lately because of COVID, but I think it really is a great tool and a strategy to help students kind of learn. And it is kind of fun. And even if you drop by Health and Wellness just for 5 minutes and do something, if you're familiar with it, and that's just kind of a check-in, that can be something really great to do right before you go into class and have to pay attention to maybe a not so exciting lecture, right? Like, I mean, that can be something that can really be helpful for you if you know where it's at, if you know how to utilize it and you've learned about it, maybe through CAPS or even the online workshop, could be super helpful.
Yeah, and you're right, it is fun. Like the activities are pretty cool. Matt already referenced this one, but there's one where you're levitating rocks and stacking them on each other, and it's almost, you feel almost like you're a Jedi trying to stack those rocks. But it is kind of frustrating when you're trying to relax and then something happens and you see the rock fly away and like, no, come back. But it is really fun. So
yeah, that's cool. Maybe for a second, let's talk for student, like you mentioned, this is something that all students can access. It doesn't even for 5 minutes. So I love like the accessibility and the universality to it for all students, because we know all students experience stress. So maybe tell us a little bit about how this is different than counseling, or let's just kind of explain that for our viewers and maybe how to decide if this is useful for you?
Yeah. Traditional counseling, right? Like there's lots of different approaches to counseling. Therapists have different theories that they might follow of how to help students in a counseling or therapy session. And so again, that can vary widely depending on the therapist you're working with, and what your presenting concern might be. And again, it's a therapist student relationship. It's a formal counseling, right? You fill out counseling paperwork to do therapy. Biofeedback is so it's not therapy, it's a great adjunct to therapy, but it can't replace, the traditional therapy, and it was never meant to. It's not therapy, but a lot of therapists do teach, like you were mentioning, like DBT skills or mindfulness skills. So that might be a part of their therapy or their approach. And biofeedback is just another place to do that, right? So we did this interesting study at BYU when I was there, and that's where I got initially trained in biofeedback. But we did the study where we did, counseling only, biofeedback only, or biofeedback and counseling. And we were looking at, what helps students lower their distress and lower their symptoms of anxiety and depression. And we found that the best group, right, was the group that did counseling and biofeedback. And that kind of makes sense because they're learning skills through the biofeedback. Their therapist can maybe use do other counseling in that counseling session because they don't have to spend time maybe teaching some of those skills because they're getting that in biofeedback. And so again, in shorter times, right, like they could decrease that stress or symptoms of anxiety, depression, or whatever. And we saw those changes, right? Biofeedback only was still helpful. Therapy only was still helpful. But again, if students are looking for distress relief, if they're looking to, get back on track by lowering their anxiety or decreasing their depression, then again, counseling and biofeedback together, if they can do that, then there can be some good outcomes. So yes, it's not a therapy form. It's not a counseling theory per se. It is very different. It's separate, and a student can just call CAPS and say, hey, I don't want counseling. I just want to try this biofeedback stuff. And we've done that for years. Say, yep, let's do some biofeedback with you and see how that goes for you, if that's what you want.
And they can do that at the Health and Wellness Center too, right? They can just pop in. They don't need to be in counseling or anything like that. You can just go in and get this resource. So it can be,
Right.
Sounds like a really great adjunct to therapy, or like a booster to therapy, and or a resource that you just access on your own, even if you don't feel like you need counseling. Just
Right.
Yeah, and so if you're wanting to do it in the Health and Wellness Center, once we have it available for everyone again, you come in and just say, hey, I want to do biofeedback. And then that first time when you come in, we teach you how to use the program. And then afterwards, you could just come in whenever you're available. And as long as the room isn't being utilized, you can also schedule the room to do the biofeedback. And so you can come in whenever you want to and just do it yourself.
Yeah, and Health and Wellness is centrally located, right? So that's probably a little bit easier to access. CAPS is a little further away now, but again, once we get it going back, the one-on-one sessions, you can kind of do both. Do the online workshop at CAPS. You can also schedule a one-on-one session sometime. So we're hoping maybe that's going to happen in the fall. Cross our fingers.
So I understand, Matt, you have a bit of a demonstration that you were wanting to share with us.
Yeah, I can do that. So sometimes I hook up my 5-year-old, right? Like she's at home and I work at home sometimes. I've done that before, but I'm in my office today. So I just attach this sensor to my ear. Most of the sensors you attach to the fingers, to an earlobe. Sometimes you can put it on the forehead to measure muscle tension, right? Like in the upper body. We have a respiration belt that can go around your stomach and can measure these breathing rates. So there's a lot of things that we can do, but again, it doesn't hurt. It's non-invasive, and all the programs are a little bit different. We have several programs. So I'll show you one today. Maybe before I get to this one though, I'll just show you this quick little one. This is a stress thermometer, and right now it's about 73 degrees. And that's the temperature in my room, right? So again, if I just hold this sensor, it's going to pick up on the temperature in my fingers, but you can see how it's going to change here.
What's some personal questions we can ask you, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, sometimes the sensors are a little bit fickle. And we're seeing if this is working today.
Oh.
It worked before this video and it's maybe struggling right now. But that's sometimes the case, right? Like I've had students come in and they're like 75 on their skin temperature, and then maybe after 15 minutes or something, they've been able to, even less than that, they've been able to increase that to like 90 or 93 or whatever. So again, that change, they've been able to do some relaxation, identify what's a stressor, and then do some things to kind of change some of that. That's some of the things that we can kind of see. So that's one thing. And again, several of the programs measure skin temperature, but I'll show you this other one real quick. Let me share my screen with you. So we'll just start this over again. So this program is called Unite and Relaxing Rhythms, and you'll hear some background music. So I'll just do a couple minutes of this, and then we'll just kind of talk about maybe some of the things you might have seen.
You know, the whole advertising industry is based on the idea that we don't have enough. If only you buy this car, if only you buy this product, if only you get this, whatever it is, then you'll be happy. Then you won't feel so stressed. Then you'll be peaceful. Now, once you set up that view of the world, however it turns out, you're likely to feel more stressed. Now, what meditation, breathing techniques, biofeedback, all of the different techniques outlined in this program teach us is they bring to our awareness what we're doing that's creating stress in our lives and what we can do to change that. They don't bring you a sense of relaxation. They don't bring us a sense of happiness and balance. They're based on the idea that's our natural state. We have that already until we disturb it. What they do, the whole premise of biofeedback, is to bring to our awareness when we're feeling stressed so that we can make the connection between what we do and how we feel. It's how we see the world, which ultimately then is the intention behind what we do. The idea is that you don't have to get these things. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to be. These are not things that we get. We have them already until we disturb them. So what this program can help you do is to become more aware of when you're feeling stressed, why you're feeling stressed, and what you can do about it. So let's do this together. Let's walk through it.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause it right there. If you saw in the program, so you see this graph at the top, and that's my heart rate, right? Like at the very beginning, it was over 100. I must have been worried about something, right? But as it kind of went on, right, I was kind of just focused on relaxing and doing my breathing. The heart rate, the number for my heart rate was over on the left-hand side. So my heart rate was kind of in the 80s as an average to begin with, but it went down to the 60s, which is usually about where I'm at, like 60s, 70s, low 70s. And then there was this number called resonance, and I'll show it back. I'll show you the screen briefly again. So resonance again is this, it's coherence. It's this, the higher the percentage, the higher the number, the more relaxed state we're in, but it's also good energy, right? So high resonance, good coherence, high coherence means we're ready to take the test. We're relaxed, but we're also paying attention and focused. You know, if we're too relaxed, meaning like we're asleep, If we sleep through the test, we won't do so well, right? But we're relaxed. But if we're too high energy, right? Like if we're too anxious, then again, sometimes the anxiety can block, right? Like the things that we studied, right? So again, that coherence is finding that natural balance that, like expert Dean, that's what he was telling us, it lies within us, but we just need to harness it and be aware of it and find what works for us and then be able to replicate that. So again, this program it's got a bunch of different activities that you can use, and you can see the heart rate, and you can see the resonance or the coherence. And then it's got a breathing pacer in the middle, right? Like you kind of inhale as it goes out and exhale as it goes in. You know, so I was just kind of doing my own breathing that I know works for me, but students can follow that as a guide. So let me just show it back for just a few more seconds so you can see kind of all these different pieces.
Get in a comfortable position. Doesn't matter if it's in a chair, on the floor, wherever you like. Try to sit without moving too much and with your spine relatively straight. Close your eyes and just let's take a moment to pay attention to our breathing without trying to control it or change it in any way, just to observe it.
Okay, so again, he's going to start by teaching breathing, and this is what we do kind of in the biofeedback lab, and we have a video, right, like in the biofeedback workshop, the online one about breathing. So you want to do what we call the diaphragmatic breathing, get your diaphragm involved, because it's your most important, it's a respiration muscle, right? Like, but when you find your optimal breathing rate, it allows good oxygen to go to your brain. It brings feelings of relaxation. And that's what we can help students do, is find their optimal breathing, get their diaphragm involved. So they're doing what we call the belly breathing, not just the chest breathing. You know, when you're having an anxiety attack or you're highly anxious, you do this chest breathing and you might feel this fight or flight response, and your breathing is shallow and rapid, and it's this chest breathing. And the opposite, when you're relaxed and again, good energy, you can be, you slow down that breathing. You're doing what we call the belly breathing. You know, I think of the monks in Thailand that are doing meditation, and they're like super chill, right? Like they're like doing this meditation. They're like focused on their breathing, and they don't have stress. They don't know what stress is like. That's very opposite from Western civilization, right? Like, and all these stressors we carry with college and what have you. So that was just a little demonstration, but hopefully that was helpful and gives you a sense of maybe what it's kind of like. But again, there's lots of different activities and programs that we can do that can help teach us about what's going on for ourselves individually.
That was really cool. Thank you. I found myself feeling really relaxed. And then I was like, how cool would it be to know actually how relaxed I was and where I started, right? That's really neat.
Hey, we can totally hook you up.
Yeah,
Okay, let's do it when we get back in person. It's, I think, really powerful to know what's going on in your body and to know that you can change that and influence that significantly. So
Yeah.
thank you, Matt, for telling us about all of this and for the good work that you're doing. I think it's amazing that students can access this now. COVID's required everyone to kind of reinvent themselves, and you've come up with some really cool ways to do that so that students can still utilize this resource now. And then even when we go back to normal, being able to still access it in that way. And then in the two different options at Health and Wellness with people like Tyler and here at CAPS as well. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for telling us all about that. And we're hopeful that we'll all get back to being able to use those resources in person, but it's awesome that we have that online workshop as well. So thanks for all your work with that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Come check out our stuff. Biofeedback's awesome. So if you're interested, come check it out.
Cool. So we'll link the resources that we referenced, and we'll also put the link to our website that kind of explains how you can join Matt's group. It's real simple, and any of the other resources we mentioned. I think that's everything. Yeah, right, Tyler?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, good luck, T-Birds, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.